What's up, y'all? Welcome back to my channel, Finding Yourself Again, where we focus on hope, healing, and recovery from toxic narcissistic abuse. Ultimate goal is to establish self-love, healthy relationships, and ultimately find yourself. My name is Dontre. I'm a survivor of toxic abuse from a narcissist / borderline. If you find these videos to be helpful to you, I ask that you subscribe, like, share the content, and watch any others that might be helpful to you. With that being said, I ain't gonna hold you. Let's get to the video. Alright, y'all. So today's video is gonna be healing after toxic narcissistic abuse. The reason what made me do this video was because I think it's an important topic. It's an important thing to talk about. After you go through toxic abuse, trauma, narcissistic abuse, any form of abuse, really, physical, emotional, mental, you're left like, your brain is like left damaged and like chemically imbalanced, you know, from everything that you've been through, right? And it's important to heal after these relationships, right? It's important to go no contact completely, permanently, and it's important to heal. So it's important for me, it's important to make a video on the steps to heal after this toxic narcissistic abuse, provide y'all with some things to keep in mind. Okay, so I got a couple things I want to go down on this list right here. The first one is going to be the aftermath. This is taking the first steps to heal. So this is immediately right after you break the relationship off and go no contact, and you move locations or do whatever you need to do, but you're out of the relationship. First thing you're going to want to do is ensure your safety, right? This is priority at this point. Some people are with some crazy motherfuckers out there, so if you're still in contact or feel threatened, prioritize creating a safe physical and emotional space. This will most likely involve changing your number, living situation, and implementing strict, hard, no contact, like I've been saying. Keep that in mind. Embrace no contact, or very low if needed. Cutting off all or most communication is crucial to break the trauma bond and prevent further manipulation. Instead it'll offer healing. So when you are talking with these people and dealing with these people still, you're getting constantly manipulated, right? So you don't want to be, your healing process is not going to be as linear. Like it's gonna be hard for you to be healing while you're still getting traumatized or manipulated or dealing with a toxic person, right? So this is why it's very important to establish healthy relationships after these types of relationships. Because if you establish the wrong relationships with somebody, it's going to do you even more harm, and it's going to prevent you from healing. It's going to hold you back from healing as fast as you want to heal, right? And we all know how much we want to heal after these crazy relationships and shit. So allow yourself to feel. Expect a range of emotions including grief, anger, confusion, relief, emptiness. Don't suppress these feelings. Allow yourself to experience them in a safe and sober way. I've said this in many of my other videos, so I ain't gonna just beat it over the head, but it's also important to remain sober, so in the healing process you can heal faster without having these other chemicals in your brain messing with your brain, but it's also important to allow yourself to feel, because there's some people out there that they may be sober, but they may be hindering themselves by not allowing themselves to feel their emotions. These are the people that say shit like, oh, boys don't cry, or I'm a man, so I ain't supposed to cry, or I ain't supposed to show my emotions, that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? You want to allow yourself to feel, so you can feel what you're going through in a healthy way, and you can move on, and you can know how to deal with this in the future when you go through something. All right, so the next one is going to be seek professional mental health support. A therapist, ideally one that specializes in narcissistic abuse and trauma, which can provide invaluable guidance, validation, and coping strategies. Look for therapists trained in trauma-informed therapy, EMDR, or somatic experiencing. You could also find like domestic violence therapists. Those ones are usually pretty good too. At the end of the day, you want to find a therapist that you like feel comfortable with. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's also a lot of people out there that think, oh, therapy's not for me, or I don't want to tell a random person my problems, but then they go and tell not random, but then they go and tell people that they have in their lives, and those people are not professionals. They're not mental health professionals. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know about you, but say my tooth hurts, I'm gonna go to the dentist. I'm not going to go to a car mechanic, right? Like, you want to go to, like, if I need heart surgery, I'm not going to go to a dentist, right? So I think that you should really be mindful too, like, especially when you went through a traumatic experience like this. You should also be mindful, like, who you're talking with and where you're getting your advice and information from, because everybody has their own biases and life experiences, right? So everybody has their own opinions and their own thoughts based off of that. Me, I'm not really somebody who likes to go off of opinions. I like to go off of facts and the majority. The majority rules to me, So with that being said, I think that's probably one of the most important ones, right next to ensuring your safety, is getting professional mental health support. The next one is going to be important too. It's reach out to your support system. Contact trusted, emotionally available, and healthy people. Friends or family who show that they validate and understand, or at least try to understand you. Lean on them for emotional support when needed. One thing I want to say about this is I've tried to lean on a lot of people in my life when I'm going through hard times, but specifically hard times after toxic narcissistic abuse, right? And a lot of people ain't really understanding what I went through there. To them it's like a regular relationship. Me and you know that it's not, right? Me and you know the damage that this has done. But I would advise you not to really waste time talking with people who don't understand or are not really trying to understand, or people that are invalidating you, because that makes your life a lot more difficult and a lot more stressful, trying to get somebody to understand. You don't want to find yourself explaining or arguing or anything like that. You don't want to. You shouldn't have to. So when you reaching out to a support system, make sure it's somebody that isn't going to invalidate you. Make sure it's somebody that's going to hear you out, and even if they don't offer any advice, but at least maybe they could just hear you out. All right, y'all. So the next one is going to be acknowledge withdrawal symptoms. Breaking a trauma bond can feel like withdrawal from addiction. You will most likely experience intense cravings to go back, self-doubt, and emotional instability. Understand this as part of the process and do not re-engage, aka do not re-engage with the toxic individual that caused all this on you, right? But yeah, just understand, breaking these bonds, it's like a drug to you. So it literally affects you like a drug. It has symptoms of like drug addiction, or so you don't you don't want to play with this stuff. You know, you want to take this stuff serious and take care of yourself. You know, take care of your health during this time. Make sure you're exercising, eating, showering, you know, doing things that you like to do, you know, even if they're just small comforting things, building puzzles, drawing, coloring, just little things that could be healthy distractions. So number 2 is going to be rebuilding your foundation, rebuilding self-esteem and self-worth after abuse. So here's where you're going to do things like this. You're going to challenge negative self-talk. Narcissistic abuse often involves constant criticism that can get internalized. Actively challenge these negative thoughts and replace them with realistic and compassionate self-affirmations. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to focus on your strengths and accomplishments. Remind yourself of your positive qualities and things you've achieved both before, during, and after the relationship. It's good to keep a journal to track these. You might be a dude, whatever, you know, I got a journal. You know, I don't call it a diary, but at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck what you call it. Because at the end of the day, it's something to keep track of my life and how I'm doing and where I'm at currently. And it's a good tracker. It's like a good life tracker, you know, and it has everything that's on your mind and what you're going through. And I don't typically, like, I don't really go back into it, but maybe like a couple times out the year, I'll go back and I'll kind of skim through it and just see where was I at this time, you know. It's got dates and all that, so it's good for stuff like this. Do things you enjoy. Reconnect with hobbies and interests that bring you joy and sense of accomplishment. This helps you rediscover who you are outside of the relationship. So if you don't know, which you probably do, once you get out of these relationships, it's almost like you lost your sense of self, of like who you are, and you don't even feel like yourself. You know, you don't really know what you like anymore. You feel like you just don't like nothing. You know, you're just so, you have a lot of cognitive dissonance going on. So, you know, you want to do things that help you rediscover who you are, like remember who you are. You know, oh, I used to do this, I used to do that. Are you still interested in that? If not, what sparks your interest now? You know, look for things that spark your interest, and this might be a time to switch it up and change doing what you know, your hobbies or whatever. You know, you might want to try doing something else. But it's a good time to start doing things you enjoy. Next is to set small, achievable goals. Start with small goals and celebrate your successes. This builds momentum and a sense of competence. So, I mean, yeah, like let's say you have a goal of, I want to start working out 3 times out the week, you know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then you start doing that. Because of the consistency, you're going to eventually see some positive health goals from that, right? Some health benefits. And that will be able to give you a sense of accomplishment and success. And that's what you want. You want those little successes that are coming from you, things that you're doing, things that when you feel accomplished, it's because of something you did, right? I already said that. Practice self-compassion. Be kind and understanding towards yourself, especially on difficult days. Treat yourself with the same compassion you would offer a friend in a similar experience. So that's basically how to have compassion with yourself. You know, and instead of giving a bunch of examples to you, I think that's the best way to explain it. You know, let's say your friend is going through a situation. What would you tell your friend to be there for them as a friend? Whatever you would tell that friend is what you would tell yourself moving forward, and start looking at it like that. Positive affirmations. This is regularly repeating positive statements about yourself and self-worth. So, you know, obviously life isn't the best every day, but I guarantee you that you can wake up every day and have one thing good to say about yourself that's positive. And I mean something about you, not something about the day or something like that. I'm talking about something about yourself. And the reason why you want to start saying stuff like that to yourself every day is because you're rewiring your brain from all of that traumatic misinformation and data that was being fed to you by the toxic person. I know we know how these toxic people are. The type of things they say can be cruel and crucial. Some people can actually even believe this stuff after a while, so it takes a big hit on you neurologically, right? So you want to definitely start to rewire your negative thoughts and your negative questions to yourself and negative self-talk. You definitely want to change that into positive self-talk. The next one is going to be focus on physical health, exercise, healthy eating, sufficient sleep. One of the reasons, other than being good for your health, is it can significantly impact your mood and your self-perception on yourself. So number 3, protecting your future. Setting healthy boundaries in all areas of your life, known as preventative boundaries. Learn to say no. Practice asserting your limits without feeling guilty or needing to over-explain. I have a video that's going to be coming out about just setting boundaries. I think it's one of the biggest topics, one of the biggest, most important steps, when it comes to healing after narcissistic abuse. And, stay tuned for a whole video regarding that. I'll go in a lot more further detail with that. The next one is going to be identify your values and needs. Understand what's truly important to you and what you need in relationships to feel safe and respected. This is about you. You get to decide what makes you feel respected and what healthy is to you, and, they're your boundaries, right? The next one is going to be communicate your boundaries clearly and assertively. Express your boundaries directly without ambiguity. So without any gray area. Like, you want to explain your boundaries clearly and directly. That way the individuals that you're dealing with know exactly where you're coming from and what you are or not okay with. Be consistent with enforcing your boundaries. So when someone crosses a boundary, follow through with the consequences that you have established. And remember, these are your boundaries. They're not mine. I have my own. So you have to create your own boundaries, and you also have to create consequences for your boundaries, and you have to be ready to implement those consequences. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm gonna do this," and then when the situation happens, you don't do shit. No, you have to stand on business. You got to do what you need to do. The next one is gonna be limit contact with toxic people. It's kind of crazy that I even felt the need to put this on here, because if you are here, you should already be doing this. You should really not be dealing with any toxic people at all unless absolutely necessary, right? Recognize and minimize or fully eliminate contact with people who consistently disrespect your boundaries. And not like say less, right? The next one is trust your gut feelings. Pay attention to your intuition. If something feels off, probably is. The next one is jade, what I was talking about earlier. Justify, argue, defend, explain. When someone challenges your boundaries, you don't need to explain or defend your position. A simple no is sufficient. That's jade. Justify, argue, defend, explain. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in my next video as well. But, to keep it brief, once again, they're your boundaries. There should be no reason that somebody is telling you or, like anything about your boundaries. A simple no is A-okay. The next one is going to be reclaiming your inner voice. Learning to trust yourself and your intuition again. Start with small decisions. Begin by making your own choices in small, low-stake situations and observe the outcomes. This is going to help you rebuild confidence in your decision making while at the same time being low risk. So you're not making big risky moves, but you're also able to like gauge your level of responsibility or stuff like that, because you don't want to do anything that's gonna jeopardize you, so you want to take baby steps when it comes to trusting yourself again, because in these relationships, as after the breakup, you don't really know if you could trust yourself, because you have all of these negative things that the person has told you in the past swirling around for probably years. And then you have the negative event, which was the breakup. You're grieving over that. And it's just really hard to trust yourself, and I have been there. Like, it's been very hard for me to make decisions before, like, because I don't have my partner there to kind of bounce it off, but you have to keep in mind that as a human, as an adult, it's up to you whether you have a partner or not. Obviously, if you're in a committed relationship, I think it would be in your best interest to discuss things with your partner and compromise. But at the end of the day, you make decisions for your life at the end of the day. So the next one is going to be reflect on past experiences. Focus on what you've learned, not dwelling on mistakes. Focus on lessons you gained and how they can inform future decisions. Don't beat yourself up. You're not a punching bag. You know what I mean? Like, we're all humans. We've all made mistakes. There's people that have made worse mistakes than me and you, and they're still out here making a better life for themselves, right? So don't beat yourself up about past experiences, and try to just use them as learning lessons. That's what I would say about that. The next thing is to journal your thoughts and feelings. I already kind of wrote that down earlier, or spoke about it. Regularly write down your thoughts and emotions. It can help you understand your inner voice and identify patterns in your intuition. Next one is practice mindfulness and meditation. This can help you tune into your body's signals and gut feelings, kind of like give you some good practice on that. The next is going to be seek external validation from healthy sources. Obviously, the goal is self-trust, but in the beginning, talking through decisions with trusted therapists or friends/loved ones can provide you with reassurance. Because like I said earlier, you're going to be in this situation where you don't really trust yourself. So you're going to be asking a lot of others, and make sure that they're people that you can trust, and make sure that you're getting validation from people that you can trust and people that love you, or a professional that knows about mental health. The next is going to be learn from your mistakes without the self-blame. Kind of already spoke on that. Affirm your right to your own feelings and perceptions. Remind yourself that your feelings are valid, even if someone tries to convince you otherwise. Trust yourself. And if you end up changing your mind later, then you change your mind. But at the end of the day, you trust you. They're your thoughts. You have them for a reason. Number 6, I believe this is the last. Navigating the storm, managing flashbacks and triggers in the healing process. Grounding techniques. When having a flashback or trigger, use your senses to reconnect. When having a flashback or trigger, use your senses to reconnect to the present moment. Focus on what you see, hear, smell, feel, and taste. That's something that you could do, is, focus on your 5 senses, or basically any type of distractions that you can do to bring you to the present moment, basically. Other things you can do are safe place visualization. Imagine a safe place and a calming place in detail and retreat there mentally when you're triggered. So in your mind, when you having a trigger moment, just think of Hawaii or whatever your safe place is, but think of it in detail, as if you're actually there. You can deep breathe. Practice slow, deep breaths to calm your nervous system down, because you're probably going to need that if you're kind of tweaking. Have body awareness. Pay attention to physical sensations in your body. Notice what feels tense and try to release those areas. The next one is going to be reassurance and self-talk. Remind yourself that the flashback is a memory and that you're safe in the present moment. A lot of times, there's going to be people out there that have been physically abused like me, and you can, I've been actually assaulted after my relationship by somebody else that I knew. And, when the person assaulted me, it was kind of like a flashback of my old relationship, so it kind of triggered me, and, sometimes you're going to have, it's life, so you're going to have moments that trigger you. But at the end of the day, you want to remind yourself that in this present moment, you're safe and you're okay. And obviously ensure your safety. That's the very first thing you do. But by the time you get here, you'll know that you're okay. The next is going to be to use distraction techniques. I kind of talked about that earlier. This could be listening to music, talking to a friend, doing a puzzle, a hobby, anything, the five senses, anything that can distract you. Identify your triggers. As you heal, you will become more aware of what triggers your flashbacks. Developing coping strategies for known triggers can be helpful. So as you heal, you're going to know more, you're going to have more of a sense of like, oh, this triggers me, that triggers me. So you're going to have some like plans in mind and some coping strategies in mind for when these situations inevitably come up. They're going to come up because it's life. So you have to be prepared for those moments. Next is going to be seek professional support. I already talked about that. A therapist can help you process traumatic memories and develop more effective long-term coping mechanisms. So the last is going to be actually this one, number 7, nurturing your soul. Don't that just sound good? Nurturing the soul. The importance of self-care in your healing journey. Prioritize rest and sleep. The healing process requires energy. Aim for consistent, sufficient sleep. Nourish your body. Eat healthy, balanced meals. Engage in gentle movement. Exercise can help release stress and improve mood. Spend time in nature. Connecting with nature can be calming and restorative. Practice mindfulness techniques and relaxation techniques. Incorporate things like yoga, meditation, or other relaxation practices to your daily routine. That'll be really good for you. Get creative. Writing, painting, rapping, building, singing, anything creative can be not only a healthy distraction, but also therapeutic for you and artistic. Set boundaries around your time and energy. Don't overcommit or engage in things that drain you. That's part of setting your boundaries right there. Allow yourself pleasure and joy. Make time for the things that bring you happiness and lightheartedness. Make sure that you preferably it would be a good idea to have a daily schedule of things that you're going to do throughout the day. Incorporate some pleasure and joy, some entertainment time or some painting time or whatever it is you like to do, and block out an hour or a couple hours, however much time you have available to do that. All right. The next one is and the last one is gonna be patient and kind to yourself. Healing is not linear. It's not vertical and straightforward, straight up. There will be good and bad days. Treat yourself with kindness and understanding and compassion through this process. It's a lot when you go through when you survive these relationships and these toxic abuse and trauma and stuff like that, So I know how it can be, and I know how it could feel, how you could be. I know how it is to just feel like you want to just be healed and you don't want to feel like this anymore, and how long am I going to feel like this? Unfortunately, there isn't a time frame, but the faster that you do these things and remain sober and get mental health professional help, the faster that you're going to heal and rediscover who you are and thrive in this world. So as always, thank y'all for watching, man. If you find anything in this video or consider helping, if you find anything in this video helpful, please consider helping me out by subscribing, liking, sharing, and watching my other videos, man. Stay tuned for my next video. And as always, I hope you guys are taking care of yourself, loving yourself, giving yourself self-compassion and the utmost respect. See you guys later. Peace.